Call to order the August meeting of the Historical Preservation Commission. Can we have the roll call?
Yes, certainly. Mark Partner. Here. Jim Morrison.
Here.
Gregory Rush.
Here.
Molly Bales.
Here.
James Bisbee.
Here.
Candace Sullivan.
Present.
Tim Thompson.
Here.
Richard Parsons.
Here.
And Trippier is excused. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have an adjustment, at least one adjustment to the agenda, and that is the removal of the consent agenda in its entirety because the minutes are not here to be read, and the North Pasteur Street written decision was approved at the last meeting. So could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Could I have a second to that?
Second.
Mark did that.
Okay. Moved and seconded, we remove the consent agenda for the reasons stated. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Historic Preservation, I have a few opening remarks about what we do. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It's responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based on U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures by neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who received notice of the meeting, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that can't be directly related to specific historic guidelines. And likewise, the Commissioners will refrain from stating personal opinions, personal likes and dislikes, or hearsay during the hearing. We'll make our decision based on the application solely and the evidence presented. Can we swear in the presenters?
Yes. All right. Anyone who would like to speak this evening in any capacity, please come forward. We'll swear you in. Even if you won't, but you might, you can come forward. Anyone? Yeah. One more? No? It's one of those tricks from, what was that, the Hollywood Squares? Anyway, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge? I do. All right, and then please print your name and your address.
While that's happening, I'll summarize the way that we'll handle applications. The HPC administrator will provide an overview of the application. The applicant or representative can present or add comments on the application. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. A rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HPC administrator will present the findings and recommendations. The applicant and representative has an opportunity to make final comments. The commissioners will discuss the evidence and ask for clarification. Chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application. Motion is discussed, and I'll call for a vote. Can we have the first application, 305 North Avenue?
Yes. Okay. So if you look at your screens, you have the application shown here. Oh, let me go up a little bit. Okay. Yes. The application for 305 North Avenue for Paul A. and Karen K. Freeman. And they have the descriptions and other information required on the application, and they have signed and dated here all the way back in January. Start with just some street view screenshots of the block, and I'm going to back up. Do you have a problem with the screen?
I have screen on.
It doesn't work?
Monitor, yeah.
Okay. This is off.
Yeah, I think so.
It wasn't recent.
Never touched it.
Was it on at all? Did it go off in a minute? Just go off? Was it
I
on?
never came up.
Invalid format. Okay, I think it's malfunctioning. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, sure.
Was it better to see
I want to
that?
see that.
It's out, it's out.
Yeah, you can move down here too. I think that's a larger screen.
You can see it here, yeah.
I'm just off.
Okay. So what we're seeing on the screen here is screenshots of the streetscape there. That the subject property is the yellowish house that's hidden behind the bushes here. We'll see it in the next shot as well. There's dead center. And you can see the house to the left and to the right as well. And now here, the house on the right with subject property on the left. So this is their site plan, so I will make it a little smaller, get more of it on there. And this shows the existing house on the double wide lot, or the lot that's double size, and shows the line down the middle where there could be a future subdivision potentially. And also shows existing trees and, of course, the property lines. The street is at the top. All right. Then with that, they have provided a site plan for the new project. I'll make that again a little bit smaller, see the whole site. Come on. All right, there we go. And so they are proposing a new house 5 feet from the side yard, and the screen 15 feet from the back of the sidewalk, and the building is 60 feet by 26 feet. They are proposing that they will be building a driveway down the middle, straddling the two potential lots, but it is currently only one lot. So it's just planning for the future there in their case, in addition to the fact that the garage in the back is also a future two-car garage. So that is not part of the application today, but the house and the fence in front of the house, the sidewalk leading to the house, the landscaping, those are all part of the application today. So here's a front view of the house. We see front porch on the first level. Second level is sided with cement lap siding. The third level is fiber cement shingles, and then the roofing at the very top is all asphalt shingle, but the roofing over the porch is a metal standing seam roof. You can also see the foundation at the porch is a brick or brick veneer. We'll move down to the next sheet. This one shows the right side or the west side of the structure. The front porch is shown on the left-hand side. And you can see that indeed the second floor and the third floor are really actually the first and second floor, because the first floor is actually open, and so is a tall foundation. And they're showing on this one, I should probably make that bigger. So there we go. They're showing for that, now that we're talking about the foundation or that lowest level, they are showing a wood lattice infill in those openings, and then the rest of the structure is to be faced with brick. Concrete block foundation with brick veneer. Then we'll talk about the height of the first habitable floor in a minute. They are also showing on the back porch or deck the air conditioning condensing units are shown on one of the decks on the first floor. Let's see, and the siding here is all the cement board siding. So down here we'll see the calculations for the actual height of the structure. We can see all the way on the right we have 9 foot showing the base flood elevation. And then we have a 2 foot figure here for the required freeboard. And then above that is shown, wait a minute, this is an old drawing. Okay, this is a problem. All right, hold on.
For clarification, that was an earlier drawing, that's what you said?
Yes, and it has been subsequently changed.
Okay.
Um, Okay, I'm going to ask the owners to clarify for me, because I can't quite find it at the moment. I believe we had eliminated this 1 foot dimension for ductwork. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yes. And we still had, though, the 1 foot 2 inches to allow for not just the structure, but the insulation in between the structural members.
Well, that's where you place.
All right, can you come up to the phone, microphone, please? And you are?
Paul Freeman.
Yes, okay, good, thank you. And I believe the 1 foot 2 inch dimension, which represents the depth of the floor structure, was also included to be above the required floodplain elevation, because you're intending to have insulation underneath the floor in that space.
That's correct.
Okay. So I thought we had a drawing that showed that, and I can't seem to find that at the moment. Does anyone object to seeing this drawing, but understanding that the 1-foot dimension is not there, or should not be there?
No.
Okay.
No objection.
I think you had it at the design review.
Yes, but this, what I'm looking at now is the
Yeah.
design review packet,
Oh,
so,
Well, it's not a significant subject for the Historic Preservation Committee, isn't it?
yes, it is, because without, otherwise, their structure will be 1 foot taller than is essentially allowed.
But that's the main difference that we would have.
Yes, that's correct.
I
So
have
the
no-
foundation here will be 1 foot shorter. They also included the extending the siding down, I believe, about 18 inches farther as well. So in the end, it was, the foundation should look 2.5 feet shorter than what is shown here.
And Mr. Chair, just in the spirit of being helpful, I think it's prudent to consider the application as it's printed before you, with the understanding that the application has made an amendment to the application, removing that 1 foot portion that the HPC administrator just referenced. So if you're inclined to entertain a motion later in the hearing about approving the application, it would be with the amendment made tonight.
got it. Is the movement of the siding part of that?
Yes, it is. So there's 2 pieces.
2 pieces,
Yeah,
lowering of the siding and the removal of that 1 foot.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we can continue. So essentially, the finished floor is 1 foot shorter than is shown on this drawing, and then the siding is 1.5 feet shorter or lower than is shown on the drawings as well. All right, next page. So this is now the east side, essentially a mirror image of the west side. And we will see at the bottom the rear elevation, oops, and I'm going to make that larger before we go out to the front again. Okay, so on the rear, we again have the brick foundation, then we have the 2 balcony decks out the back, and on the very top of the, there is a small roof over the upper deck, only in the middle section, and that has got the metal roofing on it, the corrugated, the standing seam metal roofing. The gable has the shingles, the fiber cement shingles, and then the the first habitable floor and the second habitable floor are sided with the cement board siding. Okay. Then at the front elevation, they are showing us what the fencing out front would look like and their dimensions. And the 2 lanterns at the entrance for the home, the brick pillars, and then the picket fences. Those are wood, and they're primed and painted. And then there is actually, to the right of this second pillar is a curved section which disappears into the distance, so they didn't draw it on this drawing for fear of being misleading. But the site plan does show that. We can look at that if you want. Then this is the landscape plan. And here we see that curved fence on the landscape plan as well. So that curved portion is right here on the lower left of the drawing. And then they have called out all the various plants for the site, and this large area at the top is the existing tree is to remain. So they're looking to save that large tree there. I think that's it. Oh, that was actually from the previous. And so we also then have the zoning and inspections review for the project. And we have the project does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance, and the chief building inspector indicates that it will require a building permit, of course. Demolition, building, and floodplain development permits are required. And then we're ready with our findings and recommendations.
Okay. Does the applicant, do you want to add anything? Mr. Freeman, did you want to add anything? You don't have to.
Well, I just want to assure you that we could make the modifications to the plan and resubmit if,
No, I'm sure, I remember seeing it, so I'm sure I
Okay.
have it somewhere.
gotcha.
But, unfortunately, it didn't make it in the presentation.
Are there proponents or opponents of the plan here who would like to, who have been served notice, who want to comment on the plan? Seeing none. Anybody else who has justification want to comment? Seeing none. We're ready for your findings and recommendation.
Okay, so this is for project for Paul A. and Karen K. Freeman for their project at 305 North Avenue. The historic house was built in 1928, but it is pending as a vacant lot. And the project for this property is to include demolishing the existing contributing house and replacing it with a new two-story infill house. So the proposed demolition has been approved by the HPC, however, cannot proceed until the redevelopment is approved. And staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. So for development pattern, 2.1.1, 2.1.3, for utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. For landscaping, 2.4.1, 3, 4, 5, and 8. For fences and garden walls, 2.5.1 and 2. For accessory structures, for the future location shown is 2.6.1, which refers to it needing to be in the secondary or tertiary area. Parking, 2.7.1 and 2. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, and 4. For infill construction, 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. For foundations, 4.1.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. For entrances, 4.4.4. For roofs, 4.5.4. For masonry, 5.1.5. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 5. And for contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. The statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is new infill construction within the tight weave development pattern. 2, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 3, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to replace the house that has been approved for demolition with the proposed two-story infill house with the following condition: the construction or installation of any accessory structure will require a separate COA. Those are our findings and recommendations.
Okay. Questions or comments from the commission?
Well, this has been a long process, which demolition and redevelopment always tends to be. I think the applicant has taken a reasonable approach to deal with design components, as well as having to deal with flood height issues. The overall design Does reflect some elements of historic shotgun side halls that you see in Riverside and downtown. I think it will fit in nicely with the Riverside Historic District. Materials are well noted. They all seem to meet the standards for materials as outlined in the guidelines.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none.
Well, I would have one. I saw that fence being rounded on that corner, and I'm not sure yet. I think it does not look showing the property like it's going around the corner. Couldn't that be just made on a 90-degree?
I don't understand the question.
The fence is going rounded around the corner there.
Oh, round fence, okay, I got you.
Well,
You're asking-
any other thoughts to that?
I think it's really owner's preference.
Yeah. Okay.
There's certainly nothing dictating 90-degree fence.
I was just looking up the guidelines, but we don't have anything about that rounded
No.
corners. I guess it's easier to mow, or well, what's the purpose behind that? It just looked a bit odd to me on that, but as you said, we don't have to. If there's nothing in the guidelines about it, I think we can just leave it rounded.
Did you want to comment on that, Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, we gravitated towards the curved fence at that location because of the proximity to the driveway.
Also,
It's right practically in the driveway. So having the curb just ease the edge
Yeah.
a little. That was, I
so in
think,
case somebody has to take a trailer in or out or something, that you don't hit the fence or so.
or swinging of a car door, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was not totally opposed to it. It was just something that
Yeah.
hit my eye, and I was thinking about it. Thank you
Okay.
for clarifying.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Chairman,
Richard?
I looked at that same issue and wondered why there weren't gate posts on both sides of the driveway, but because half the driveway is going to be on the other lot,
Property.
you don't want to demarcate it as your driveway if
Yeah.
it's half the other guys.
Yeah.
There aren't any curved fences like that in Riverside, but there it is. It's going to be one now, I guess.
And the question for this committee is going to be whether that design element is congruous or
Yes.
incongruous.
Yeah.
So that might be part of your deliberations this evening.
No, I didn't see anything that would be incongruous with the guidelines regarding that rounded corner.
Okay, okay. Any other comments, issues? Hearing none, then would entertain a motion to approve the application with the amendment describing the change in elevation and siding.
Mr. Chairman, I move we find the amendment to the for the certificate of appropriateness for 305 North Avenue to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Development pattern 2.1.1 and 3, utilities 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6, landscaping 2.4.1, 3, 4, 5, and 8, fences and garden walls 2.5.1 and 2, future accessory structures not approved as part of this amendment 2.6.1, parking 2.7.1 and 2, design principles 3.1.1, 2 and 4, infill construction 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4, foundations 4.1.2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.4, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.2 and 3, entrances 4.4.4, roofs 4.5.4, masonry 5.1.5, paint 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 5, contemporary materials 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and findings of fact, the new infill construction is in the tight weave development pattern. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines and includes an amendment at the meeting for a reduction in the height by 1 foot as shown on the plan, and also an extension of the siding 18 inches down to the top of the brick.
Second for that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the COA and the amendment to the COA. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Need a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the issuance of the COA. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Now we need a motion approving the letter which you have to the applicants.
The written decision.
The written decision, yeah, excuse me.
So move.
Well, it needs an amendment, however.
Yes, it does.
So the motion to approve the written decision would include that the application was amended during the hearing to reflect a 1 foot downward deviation in elevation and an 18-inch reduction in the length of the siding.
And is that your motion, Greg?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the written application, which will,
Written decision.
the written decision, excuse me, which would be amended to include the amendment.
Yes.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are ready for 719 East Front.
All right. Very good.
So thank you.
Okay, our next one, 719 East Front Street. This is the application they had way back when. And when they received their COA for the project, they are now applying for an amendment to that COA that was issued, to allow for them to move the building forward, backward, such that the front, what happened? So left and right is up and down. Go figure. All right. Have to go manual. So that the front porch can be at 16 foot 8 inches, and the body proper 22 feet from the property line. And that was based on the fact that the requirements for the setbacks have recently been changed and adopted by the alderman. So now this proposal is in compliance with with that new change. So let's see if there's anything else. They have provided all the appropriate dimensions in order to determine that. And this is I believe this is it's going down up. You provided both the previous and the proposed. So I think this is what was approved, am I correct? With 5 steps. And then your proposal ends up No, that must be it. That must be the new proposal, right? This was the original, this one was the one that was approved prior, and so the one above is the one that would result with the new change. See how the building can sit back farther. Okay. All right, and so we have then a new zoning and inspections report, which says that it does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance. And nevertheless, the chief building inspector continues to say that it will require a building permit, believe it or not. And building and floodplain development permits are required. So whenever you're ready, we do have some recommendations, findings and recommendations for this for you.
Do we have any proponents or opponents of the plan that would like to speak? Seeing none. Anyone else who hasn't been notified wish to comment? Seeing none. We're ready for your recommendation.
Okay. So this is for Shannon and Corinne Core and Go Architectural Design for 719 East Front Street. It is currently a vacant lot, and so the proposal is an amendment to the approved COA to revise the setback location of the house on the site plan. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application for development pattern 2.1.1 and 2.1.3. The statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is new infill construction within the tight weave development pattern. The proposed building location meets the requirements of the guidelines. 3, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this amendment to the approved COA to revise the setback location of the house on the site plan.
Okay. Are there comments or questions from the commission?
I just wonder if anybody is listening at home, what the gist of the amendment to the ordinance was. Not great detail, but...
Sure. Prior to, the front yard setback was determined by measuring the setbacks of all other contributing buildings on the same side of the same block. And then if there weren't enough of them, there were other criteria. But now the change has been made such that the setback is determined by measuring the setbacks of all the houses on the block, whether they're contributing or not.
I think it ends up in a more pleasing result, I believe.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, would entertain a motion to approve the COA for 719 East Front Street.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we find the proposed amendment to the certificate of appropriateness for 719 East Front Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinances, sections 15-411 to 15-429 and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines: development pattern 2.1.1, 2.1.3. Findings of fact: the project is new construction with a tight weave development pattern. The proposed location, in this case not a building, of the steps, meets the requirements of the guidelines. Zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the proposed changes under the amendment and have commented accordingly. And the proposed changes of this amendment are not incongruous with the guidelines.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the amendment to the COA. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Motion to issue a COA,
No, sir. You just
Don't
need a
need one?
motion to adopt the written decision.
just that, okay? Need a motion to adopt the written decision. The written decision would be amended to have the right names on it.
That's correct.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yes.
Yes, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the written decision with the right names on it. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Issue the letter. Okay. You're very welcome.
That phone call with some changes he wants to make.
Ready for 100 Craven Street.
All right. So here we have the application, 100 Craven Street. Property owner is Tiara IH LLC, John Haroldson, and the MBF Architects are their authorized representative. There's their application, signed and dated. And here is the owner's authorization to authorize MBF to be their representative. This is their cover letter, which includes some of the information that is, fills out some of the information on the application. And this is a very large drawing again, but here first we'll start with the site, the aerial. We're talking about the hotel that is along the river and next to the convention center, formerly known as Doubletree Inn. And this is a site plan. Make it a little bit smaller. There we go. And this shows the renaming it as Tapestry by Hilton. And the primary things to look at here are on the site plan are the changes to the driveway. This shows the existing configuration of the driveway with especially this entry to the service area down here at this end of the building, has this S curve to it, and then the entrance underneath the entry canopy, and then at the end here, this parking lot is a dead-end parking lot. They'll be changing that proposing to change that. So here is the proposal. So the driveways, the S-shaped driveways can be shut off, and it'll just be a straight in for the service area, but also then it is simultaneously also the entranceway for the canopy and the reception. And so that all of these represent the various changes. And then at the end of the dead end, they're actually cutting that through to make it come out at the end. They also have some sidewalks that they're adding on the back side along the river, and also 2 enclosed patios. That's it for the site work. Then for the building itself, they are proposing to remove all the windows and all the doors. And this is the quote-unquote demolition plan for that, showing all the doors and all the windows have X's, or they're dashed out actually, so to be removed. And that's both on the, that was the back, this is the front. And that's to be how it's to be proposed with the new windows in there, and the new doors. Even the overhead door for the service area is going to be new. And there is a detail to be noted because these 2 dashed lines at the bottom, These horizontal dashed lines represent flood levels. And so we'll see a detail of that in a minute. But here's the end elevation on the west end. Here showing the removal of the windows and doors again. But on the right-hand side, we see the proposed new windows and doors. So on the first level, we're going to get windows that are smaller on the top because they're adding a solid panel underneath where up to the flood elevation, the regulatory flood elevation. And same thing for, there's a few windows that are larger with 4 windows. And then these are the new doors. And then for the upper windows, they're just, they don't have those panels in them. There's, let's see. They're showing here the some mullions to be added in the one door. And let's see, so then the next sheet. We didn't see this yet, so this is now the proposed west elevation with the new windows and doors. It's a south elevation with all the windows and doors to be removed. And now with the new windows and doors. Also to note here, I'm going to go up 1 second, is to note over here on the left, we have some railing on top of the first floor roof of that section of the hotel. So now down here on this one, that area also has some additional screening going on here behind the railing. And we'll see that in plan view in a minute, but it's to screen some new mechanical equipment that's going over there. And I believe we have the same situation over here. We have some screening here for some balconies or patios that come out from 2 of the guest rooms, I believe, on this end. All right, so while we're here, this is a section through the new windows that include the solid panel in the bottom part, and then the smaller replacement window on the top. And then on this side, we have the on the east elevation, it's showing all the doors and windows again to be removed, and then the new to be replaced. And you can again see the X's here are that decorative pattern in the bottom panel of the that's being added for the flood panel, you'd call it, I suppose, in the windows. Let's see. Oh, also on this view, you can see the extent of the screening on the east side of the building. Now this is over the, or looking over, we're looking at the service bay area, and so behind, on the ground level, there's quite a bit of mechanical equipment. And above that mechanical equipment, it's open to the sky. But beyond that, behind that, there is a bit of roofing back there, and that is what has this screening. Again, we'll see that in the plan view, which is not over there. All right. Okay, here are the plan views. I'm going to make them a little smaller because there's more there than you think. All right, so on the west end of the building, that's where the roundabout is on that end. And there is, like I said, that first floor roof that had the railing around it, and then I mentioned the screening. This is the screening. It's in the middle of that roof, not up against the railing. And so there's some mechanical equipment that's going in the middle of that roof. There are also 2 additional small patios on the roof that they are also putting some railing and screening around as well. And then on this part of the drawing, here, this is then the east end of the building, looking towards the convention center. And there are, this big white area is then that open to the sky area overlooking, what they're not showing there is the massive amounts of mechanical equipment down there. But this on the left side, this larger rectangle here, is actually roofing at that level, so above the first floor. So they are also adding then 2 additional patios for rooms there as well. And they too have that railing and screens, privacy screening between them. All right. So for the doors, they have to do something different with regard to the flooding, and so they're proposing to add flood panels, temporary flood panels, or emergency flood panels, maybe a better way of putting it, because most of the time they're not there. And then in the event of an emergency, the building has a series of holes with sleeves in them to allow for this paneling, these metal panels to be installed in order to protect the doorways from the flooding. So if we want to see that larger or have any other further questions about it, it's easy to install, etc. So it just for our purposes, it just amounts to a couple of, a series of holes in the floor and on the walls. And that is some documents they've provided that are just the application and things. And then here they have some photographs of the existing building, in case we have some questions. And then for the zoning and inspections, can't read that. The zoning administrator has indicated that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance, and the chief building inspector has indicated that it will, of course, require a building permit with building and floodplain development permits required. And then we're ready with our recommendations.
Do you guys have any comments you want to add?
No, I'm just available for questions.
Okay. Are there any proponents or opponents of the plan who would like to speak? Seeing none. Ready for your recommendations?
All right then. So we'll make these a little bit bigger. So this is a project for John Haroldson and MBF Architects at 7, right. This is one of the errors. All right, here it is. At 100 Craven Street, that was the extra handout I gave you guys. And this is a non-contributing structure. The project is to include windows and doors replacement, new flood barrier, mechanical screening, and site work in all AVCs. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For utilities, 2.3.1 and 2. For design principles, 3.1.4. For modifications, 3.2.1, 2, and 4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.3. For roofs, 4.5.6. For paint, 5.4.2. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, and 3. And the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is modification to construction within the waterfront development pattern. 2, the proposed building location meets, that's the other change. 2, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 3, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include windows and doors replacement, new flood barrier, mechanical screening, and site work in all AVCs.
Okay. Questions or comments from the commission?
I think that the changes you're proposing, certainly because it's not contributing, you're using contemporary materials that I think will help flood mitigation, and most of that is either flood damage repair or flood mitigation.
Yeah.
And I think it still retains the character of the building, the materials are proper. The changes are really probably not noticeable once it's finished. And so it's really commend you on the job you did.
Good. Other comments?
He said exactly what I was going to say.
Obviously, what we said, the design review, you need a raise. Okay. We ready for a motion to approve the application for 100 Craven Street?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 100 Craven Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Utilities 2.3.1 and 2, design principles 3.1.4, modifications 3.2.1, 2, and 4, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.2 and 3, roofs 4.5.6, paint 5.4.2, contemporary materials 5.5.1, 2, and 3, and state findings of fact. The project is modifications within the waterfront development pattern. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we,
Can I make one clarification?
Yep.
I think, Jim, you mentioned section 4.3.2. Did you mean to include that, or?
I'm sorry, I read the other sheet.
No.
Yeah,
They're both are-
4.3.2 is new openings, which is not right.
Right.
So it should,
Okay,
please
so we'll
strike, I'll
strike
amend it
that
to
one.
exclude 4.3.2 and only have 4.3.3.
Okay, and Mr. Rush?
seconder agrees?
I second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, we approve the application with that change. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's opposed. Need a motion to issue a COA for that 100 Craven?
So moved?
Moved and seconded, we issue the COA.
Who did the
All in
second?
favor, state aye.
Aye.
I think Greg and Candace both
Yep, okay,
pick one.
so I get to pick.
And a motion to approve the written decision.
So moved.
Well, the written decision and the copy we have needs to be amended to remove 4.3.2, correct?
Oh, is that where you got that?
Yeah,
Oh, yep, okay.
but that did have the right findings.
Everything else,
Okay, so, Jim, you made the motion, right?
Yeah, motion to approve the written decision with the amendment of under D, windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 is removed.
Okay. And
Second.
seconded that way, okay. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, okay.
all right.
So we have the Oh, we don't, do we need the folks from the redevelopment authority to,
No.
okay? What do we need to do
Well,
there?
first of all, you, old business,
Old business.
we have none.
We have none.
General public comments,
No public comments, they're gone.
there's no public.
There's no problem.
Public.
Okay, so our new business is Trent Court.
It's Trent Court.
So, for this one, they have submitted an application that will be coming up at our design review meeting for demolition of what they call Phase 1. So, as part of our procedure, we need to request a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office concerning whether or not the property or the buildings are considered to be labeled as of statewide importance. That's part of our procedures here in New Bern to determine that, to find that out first as part of your considerations when you are considering the demolition of a contributing structure. So since these are all contributing structures, that's part of your procedure, and if we can get that authorization tonight, we would potentially, they typically have 30 days in order to produce that letter. 30 days from now, or from tomorrow, is probably going to be cutting it close. Just because they are supposed to get it done in 30 days may or may not mean they do get it done in 30 days, or they might get it done earlier. So if we can get direction from the HPC tonight to go ahead and request that information, we can have that potentially ready for your regular meeting in September.
Okay, and you need a motion to
Yes.
issue that letter?
Mhm.
Okay?
And Mr. Chair, the rules of procedure for the HPC indicate that you need SHPO to determine whether the structures are of statewide significance. And also, you need a written evaluation by SHPO and an opinion on the architectural, historical, and cultural significance of the structures. So you can ask SHPO for all of that information in one motion.
Okay,
Okay, good. I was going to go for 2 on that, but, all right.
okay. So I need a motion
Well, I
to
think
that
it's
effect.
important to note that the only thing they requested us to consider is demolition of buildings that are currently vacant and in the floodplain.
That's correct.
Phase 1.
That's correct.
It's not where anybody's living right now.
Yes. However, it is our understanding that they are expecting to request the remainder at some future date.
Correct,
So
yeah.
you could decide to ask for the information for all the buildings at Trent Court at this time. Or you could decide that that's not appropriate yet and only do it for the specific buildings that they are specifically proposing to remove at this time.
Do you think if we ask for it in its entirety, that's going to prolong the response?
I would tell you, Mr. Chair, that if the application before you is only for a certain section, we don't know what interval of time there may be for any subsequent requests, if those requests ever materialize.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it may be prudent for you to focus on the request as it's been presented to you.
Restricted to the request that they made, which is the lower section? Okay.
Can somebody educate me on the term Trent Court? These buildings don't resonate for me.
So those are the buildings that are currently vacant, were flooded during Florence. They're near the Tryon Palace, just west of the Tryon Palace. They're 2-story brick buildings, subsidized housing, right along the river there.
That's just the front row of them, right? Or is
Well,
it the whole?
there's about 12 buildings at this point, out of the 30 or 42 buildings. I think 12, 14 buildings are being proposed for now because they all are currently empty,
Okay, most of them are still,
occupied.
Yeah.
Yes, most are still occupied.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move we request a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office regarding whether Trent Court is classified as being of statewide importance for architectural, historical, or cultural reasons, and limited to the buildings under consideration for demolition.
did that encompass your comments? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, second for that motion?
Second that.
Moved and seconded, we issue that letter to SHPO. All in favor, state aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Who made the second, I'm sorry?
Gregory.
Greg, thank you.
It's a duty seconder tonight.
Gotta do something.
I'm just curious, when were these houses built?
In the 1940s and 50s?
1940, actually 1942, 43, Trent Court. Craven Terrace was later. I don't understand why we wouldn't just get classification for Trent Court as one specific area. It was all built at the same time, and if we're asking for significance from the state, it should be Trent Court. So to say 3 buildings versus
They
8
haven't,
sections.
they haven't requested demolition of the others. That's the only difference.
And when they do request demolition, the work will be done. We can request a letter, and 30 days later, we should have it.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to what they did for Craven Terrace.
The way that I understood it, Molly, was that they needed an immediate decision. They couldn't wait to get the whole plan,
Correct,
or they would lose their funding.
correct. I get it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have a question for Matt. Didn't you say that you also need an architectural report?
We have that.
Oh, yes, so,
And I didn't hear
Yeah.
that, maybe.
He-
maybe
I think
I
he said
said
he said
architectural,
architectural.
historical,
Okay.
and cultural.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We voted on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. I don't have a copy of the rest of the agenda for some reason. Is it, what else is on there?
HPC Administrator's Report.
oh, sorry.
Okay. Is there anything of significance you wish to report?
Not other than what's there.
Okay. You have nothing, okay. Any other comments from the commissioners? No public here. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, state aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
All right.